Yo, welcome everyone, Sanju Chia here. Hope you guys are having a great weekend. But since we're more or less one day from the start of the year of Boruto, as I'm going to be calling it for the most part, I wanted to kind of talk about one of the things that's highly anticipated for the Boruto franchise for this year, and that is the Boruto time skip. And with today's video, I wanted to kind of have a discussion with you guys, kind of tackling how the setup for the time skip is going to go when it comes on to the members of Team 7, mainly Boruto, but I will talk on Mitsuki and Sarada to a degree in this video as well. But anyway, hope you guys are having a great weekend. Before we get into it, the YouTube Jazz and Blues, you know the drill. If you're new here, be sure to like the video, subscribe, share it out, let me know your thoughts on my thoughts as per usual. And let's just get into it. We're trying to get to 20,000 subscribers at least by the end of this year, so hey, why not? Support your friendly neighborhood Uchiha. But anyway, let's get into it. So the Boruto time skip, as I said, this is the year of Boruto as I'm calling it. The anime, which starts back up tomorrow, is starting, well, how should I put it? It's going neck deep into the O arc, or the Vestal arc as they're calling it in the anime, and the manga for the most part is inching closer and closer to the time skip. And it's even to the point where the illustrator, the artist for the Boruto manga, has stated that the flash forward for the scene that we got in the beginning between Boruto and Kawaki is essentially it's getting close. He can't exactly say how close, but we're not too far off from that moment. So a lot of us are expecting to actually get that time skip this year. But how are we going to set things up, right? Now, of course, as you can probably tell by the thumbnail and everything by now, one of the main things that a lot of persons are expecting when it comes on to the setup at least is for Boruto Uzumaki to actually leave the village and become a quote-unquote rogue ninja, which I'm actually subscribing to that idea for the setup for the time skip, and with good reason. Don't get me don't, it's not just to necessarily just make him like a carbon copy of, you know, the path that Sasuke took when he was young. Because obviously we know Boruto wants to become a ninja like Sasuke, someone who can support the village from the shadows. But him becoming a rogue ninja, I feel, has some narrative weight, or at least it has some ties into how his character needs to develop to achieve his goal of becoming a ninja like Sasuke, as well as I think it's critical. It would be a critical move, I feel, in involving the other great nations in this global conflict, this global concern, which it legitimately is, because we are dealing with the Otsutsuki. Now, of course, right now in the manga, as of chapter 53, we do know we have, well, Momoshiki, who has possessed Boruto's body, essentially going up against Sasuke, Naruto, and Kawaki. That's the current setup that's going to be taking place going into chapter 54. Now, coming out of the situation, no matter how you slice and dice it, Boruto and his ability to, well, his inability to, you know, keep Momoshiki at bay is going to come into play from a political standpoint, I feel. And this is how the other great nations are going to get involved more than likely in possibly exiling Boruto from Konoha, or at least it will bring a number of things into conflict when it comes on to Naruto and his we how should I put it, how much power he has in the decision, like being a father versus the, you know, being a leader of the village, the political aspect of it as well. And what I'd want to say is that even Boruto himself might take it upon himself to leave the village as well, because he's going to become a danger to not just those his immediate family, but everybody in the village more than likely. So Sasuke, being Sasuke, provided he lives through this, even though I don't see him dying right now, more than likely will resonate with what Boruto is going through, at least from the perspective of having to leave the village to, you know, further himself for some specific agenda. And of course, it's not the same agenda as Sasuke, like revenge, but Boruto more than likely will be trying to protect his family, his friends, and he will leave the village. Now, it's important for me, at least, well, personally speaking, that this actually happens, because as I said, it would be good to see the input of the other five great nations, well, other four great nations in the current situation, at least from the manga's perspective. More like when it comes down to the anime, we'll get more of that, but from the manga's perspective, I think we need to expand the scope of the, the persons or the countries or the groups that are involved in the conflict, because I, for the most part, think it's been very Konoha centric for the most part, the Konoha show. So yeah, that's one thing I definitely need to see happen. Now, with the whole idea of him becoming a ninja like Sasuke, someone that can support the position of Hokage from the shadows, I think it is important, in even though I know I did say earlier that we're not blatantly just copying Sasuke's, whole path of leaving the village, but in this sense, Boruto essentially needs to experience that path of, that lonely path of being the Shadow Kage, what it means to really support and protect your friends from the shadows while, how should I put it? Taking on all this. Yeah, I don't know how to put it. But I think you guys know what I'm going for. He'll be taking on a lot of emotional pain going forward. It's a lonely path to becoming a ninja like Sasuke, is essentially what I'm saying. So him leaving the village and becoming a quote-unquote rogue ninja would actually tie into that, I feel. So I think it's something that not only would be a ripe opportunity to bring in other parties to the table just to make the story feel more dynamic and not Konoha centric, but it also ties into the path that I feel Boruto needs to take to become a character like Sasuke, like in terms of a goal at least. So I think it's important to take those first steps. And of course it does tie into the whole, okay, we're starting with a life of peace, and yeah, my life is going to go to darkness kind of deal. So yeah, that's really and truly it. But the thing is, now how do characters like Sarada and Mitsuki fit into the setup? Because obviously Sarada and Mitsuki haven't had the best showing in the manga from the perspective of they're not big focus, but there is potential there at the same time manga wise for them to get focused on going forward for the time skip. So what's going to happen? To put it simply, I feel Sarada, given everything that's happened, and I've mentioned this to some persons beforehand, before this video, is that given everything that's happened, given the fact that she wants to be Hokage, someone who can protect the village, as someone like Naruto who treats the village like family, the fact that she hasn't had a big contribution to the recent battle, coming from the end of the fight with Boro, I think all of these things will add up for Sarada to take some drastic action, and potentially, given the theme of, being the Hokage and inclusion and family, we could use Sarada's path or her setup for the time skip to actually bring in some old characters like Tsunade. Of course, that would segue into building on the narrative point of, the Byakugo seal is from the time of the Sage of Six Paths, tie into her power progression as well there. But I think from a narrative standpoint, for her character personnel, she's going to take everything that's happened and tie that in with bringing back old characters for her training and transition into the time skip. More than likely will be her setup. And of course, with Mitsuki, more than likely he will probably retire back to Orochimaru and be, or maybe he might end up traveling with Boruto, you never know. Because obviously he might team up with Orochimaru to further his evolution, more than likely, for the time skip. So that's one thing to consider as well when it comes on to Mitsuki going forward. I think Mitsuki is probably the most ambiguous in terms of how his development or his setup for the time skip is going to go, especially if we're going to segue to have Boruto with Sasuke, and I just don't really see Mitsuki in that setup. And when it comes down to these whole Naruto time skips, of course we know each character is kind of going to be like paired off. If we're going by tradition, each character is going to have their own set of motivation, and it's going to be like tied off, by themselves with their trainer or whatever the case may be. So there is that for the most part. But I was going to ask myself, how does Kawaki fit into all of this? And it's I don't know. I think that's $1 million question, actually. Really and truly. Might have to wait until chapter 54. But let me know your expectations and how Kawaki is going to be set up for the time skip, because if I'm kind of subscribing to the idea that Boruto is going to leave the village, I don't know what's going to happen with Kawaki, honestly. Probably need some more data to make some kind of conclusion there. But I think that's probably the best setup I can think of right now, or at least what I would want to see happen for the story. I think overall, just generally speaking, all of that would make it more dynamic and, you know, push the manga forward. So yeah. But anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in if you made it this far. Be sure to comment, subscribe, road to 20,000, like the video if you did, share it out, let's start a discussion. Of course, tomorrow is the big bad episode, what, 181 for Boruto with the new opening, which is probably already my favorite opening already. I just hope the visuals are, you know, the match the jazziness of the opening. So trust me, I hope this really and truly does seem like it's going to be the year for Boruto, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it plays out. So yeah. So for the most part, I'll see you for the review and live reaction for Boruto episode 181 tomorrow. And of course, be sure to, you know, stay safe. And as I said in my post, do something that makes you happy this weekend, guys. Don't stay in any form of depression. So yeah, but see you guys in the next video.